Today on my channel, Planner Friends, we are going to do a flip through of my Prayerful planner, which is a faith planner, and I'm doing this study of the Sermon on the Mount. We are going to flip through November, and I'll show you what I wrote and also how I decorated. Stay tuned. Hello planner friends, and welcome to my channel. I am One Crafty Dolo, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. If you're new, you're welcome to subscribe and tap the notification bell and all those good things. So today, what I decided to do is to do a flip through of November in my Prayerful planner. And I'm just going to talk about this for a second or two or three. Basically, my faith planner journey is, let me grab this one. I've used different binders this year, but I've been using an A5, and I've been doing a specific study since Lent. Now I'm doing this, and I have a study I've been doing. I took a pause for December, and I'm actually reading the book of Luke in here and the whole miracle of Jesus and his birth. So that has been a mainstay for almost a year. And when I get through the 12 days of Christmas, I'll link a video below, by the way, where I make this really cool booklet focused on the 12 days of Christmas, the song from a faith perspective. As I've said before, I began using this in September. I ordered it. Prayerful Planner came out with their 2023 line, and I had been eyeing their planners for quite some time, but I wasn't sure. So I ended up getting this one, which is not dated. I didn't want to date it since I was beginning in 2022, not 23. And it's daily. I've never really I'll use a daily sheet for my kind of to-do list here and there, but a daily planner is a lot for me. I don't have young children. I'm not teaching multiple courses, things like that. So I've been digging into this study, the Sermon on the Mount from the Daily Grace Co. And boy, have I done a deep dive into it. And this month in particular, I've really gotten into it. So I wanted to go through this with you and show you what I've been doing, how I decorate it, because truthfully, what I didn't know before I decorate this one as you saw, but what I didn't realize is decorating and all the creativity adds to the study, adds to my enjoyment. And what this has done for me has been wonderful. I have to tell you, I used it all of September, all of October. It's just been really great. So let me walk you through this November flip through and show you what I've done for November, or what I did, I should say. The other thing I wanted to mention is I have been using this. I'm still reading it. I did not add from this into my November study, in part because I was really focused on Matthew chapter 6. Again, a really deep dive. I will get back to this because this is a spectacular book. I found it at Hobby Lobby, and I didn't know the author I didn't realize it was Fox News. I don't know what Fox News has to do with anything other than I guess people recognize her from there. But this really is a wonderful volume that I highly recommend. So I'm going to get back to it. I just put it on pause. I'm reading it, but I haven't journaled it. So we get into Matthew, and there are some parts in here I actually repeat because I'm really fleshing it out. I'm so grateful that I have the time and the opportunity to do this. So basically, we start with Matthew 6:1, which I come back to actually. But it's basically, as disciples of Jesus. Now, sometimes I'm quoting from this, sometimes I'm quoting the actual verses, right? So you'll see both here. As disciples of Jesus who have chosen to follow God, we come to this question: who will we live for? Are we living for the world or for God? And that's something, I think, a constant struggle in our life, right? You may go to school or not, but regardless, you probably have a vision of success for your life. Well, what is your vision? How much of your vision is faith-based, right? And this gets into a lot of, for lack of a better word, hypocrisies. Matthew 6:1, beware of practicing your righteousness before other people to be seen by them. For then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Boom. Okay, and I kind of modernized it by talking about virtue signaling, right? And I'm praising Jesus. And I like this color palette, incidentally. I dug into some of the old washi and played with colors throughout this. Again, that adds to my study. Then I talk about the gift of the Sermon on the Mount, right? And putting God before ourselves. We will follow God to bring glory to ourselves, or we will follow him to bring glory to God alone. Okay, and walking the walk. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the street, that they may be praised by others. Again, to Matthew 6:2. And again, I actually repeat this later. This is big for me because, how do I want to say this? I think people who do things altruistically to benefit nonprofits or other schools, organizations they believe in. I'm an educator, and so I know, and my institution is a nonprofit that I'm working for. I know how much we need that. I know how much we rely on that. But I also have known people who are like, look, we did this. And that gets me uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's all in here, okay? And I love this whole, and this is why I really just stuck with this. I didn't even get all through Matthew 6, truthfully, last month. Action versus talk, right? In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus teaches us not to use our religion and practice as a show, but he urges us to, I missed a word here, think about our why. Our intent matters completely, okay? And being authentic, once again. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand, everybody knows this one, I think, let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that you give in secret. The highest level in what he's saying is actually the same in Judaism. I forget the term, tzedakah, I think it is. But the highest level of giving is giving anonymously. That's humility, right? And so religion as a show. We all know people who are like, look at me, I'm going to church, look at me, I'm going to shul, look at me. And their life's a hot mess. And yeah, this resonates so much with me. Again, intent. We must guard our hearts and our motives for even the good things we do. Our fallen nature means that even when we are doing good, we are usually filled with fake motives. And I questioned it. You see that? I put a question mark here. Needless to say, the study helped me work through my question. I am human. I am going to question things. And I'm like, well, if we're doing good, what are the fake motives? Haha, right? And I like this idea too. And this is something I've tried to emphasize with my son. We as Christians, we as humans, we are called to a higher standard. We're going to fail that standard. We are going to let one another down. That's just part of being human. But intent, right? Sometimes we're looking for the approval of others, sometimes for status, other times for recognition. But the entire Sermon on the Mount is calling us to that higher standard. And I really, boom, right? I feel like, to put it in the modern vernacular, Jesus does a mic drop, if you will, on that one, right? Jesus addresses several spiritual disciplines, and he'll speak of giving, praying, and fasting. Jesus never used the word if. He uses the word when. So when you pray, when you give, when you fast. I don't fast because I have a medical condition. I know people who do, and it's not easy, but they also derive a lot from that practice, right? Jesus is telling us not to live to put on a show before men. He's telling us not to act like one thing when our hearts are in a totally different place. Examine your intent and motivations daily. So that brought me to this. because I was thinking to myself, what am I actually doing with this channel? Am I showing you how righteous I am? I'm not. By doing this study, by filming it, by uploading it to YouTube. So I really wrestled with getting down to my intent, right? And I'll explain what conclusions I came to with that, because that's why I did such a deep study, because I was looking inward. I'm not looking at anyone else. I'm bringing up examples of other people, but boy, am I looking inward. Okay. As we gaze at the goodness of the gospel and the grace that has been lavished, and I love that word, okay, from the study, the grace that has been lavished on us, boom, our perspectives will begin to shift as we realize Jesus has loved us and called us to be his children. But the goodness is we can run to Jesus again and again, I would add again and again and again, and surrender to him and allow him to make our hearts pure. Okay, what it's trying to say here is that if you keep reading, if you keep studying, those light bulbs, I can't snap. The light bulbs go off. And what's your heart? How pure is your heart? Right? I'm talking about people who are hypocrites and pray to be seen. But what's my heart? How am I praying? When am I praying? What am I praying? Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen. I did a redo of that one. What is real prayer and real charity? Okay. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you. And it's all about motives. You'll notice too, sometimes here I'll do a little prayer. It says prayer. But sometimes this is just decorated, but sometimes I just kind of, like this one. As Christians, we're called to a higher standard here. Authentic, real, genuine versus virtue signaling, being fake. Humility, grace, more humility. I think that's really important. I think a lot of this has to do with us humbling ourselves before God and before Christ and looking inward. I just thought this is a fabulous study, I have to say. And then we're going back to from charity, then we go to prayer. And when you pray, this is Matthew 6:5. When you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and in the street corner, that they may be seen by others. And that's true, right? People do it. And what does that mean? It means, Holly Girth is an author I really like. And she always talks about how Elijah in the Bible comes in the quiet, how God comes to us in quiet, how in those quiet, reflective moments is when we're most with him, right? Jesus is focusing on prayer in these verses. This is where we are given the Lord's Prayer. It is his gift to us. And he reminds us again of how much our intent matters. So again, sometimes I put prayers here. Sometimes I just put like little blurbs to play with it. And you can see I stamp, I washi, I use colored markers in this, which I generally don't in my other planners, because I'm really focusing in on the verses, but letting my creativity flow as I'm focusing, if that makes sense. In these passages, Jesus is telling us first what not to do, okay? And he explains why it's wrong. If you think about it, what he's doing is setting examples before you and saying, this is problematic, that's fake, this is wrong, that's wrong, right? Praying to be seen, giving to charity to show off isn't authentic, and God knows our heart and he sees our intent. Matthew 6:6. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Boom. I just paused a minute to just, right? When intentful, mindful prayer, you can see why I really just focused in on this section for the month of November. Jesus is dealing here with a heart issue. He's addressing not just the sin of the hypocrite and the Gentile. He's speaking into our predisposition to sin. Jesus is reminding us that prayer is about God's glory and not our own. He's revealing the truth that often when we come in prayer, we are still focused on ourselves. That makes me want to cry. Oof. And when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases, for your Father knows what you need before you use them. Right? Do not keep up empty phrases. I can't read my own writing. It doesn't matter. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And so what they're saying in this study is that when Jesus is saying, look at what's going on. Now that I've given you the outline of the problems, here is something, a beauty. And the Lord's Prayer is beautiful, right? Let it be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us. Well, it said debts, but I like trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Now, I put a departed friend of mine in there because he used to, I was getting my dissertation and I would stress. I was stressed about money. I was stressed about getting it done. I was stressed a lot. And he knew it, and he was kind. And he would call me and say, listen, he was kind of gruff. Daily bread doesn't mean bread. Don't you get that? I was like, okay. And we would talk about it. And what is your daily bread? Shelter, love, kindness, help from others. Your daily bread is what is going to get you through today to make you whole, to make you complete. And that's what God does. That's what Jesus was sent to do for us. Yeah, that's a good lesson, isn't it? And this talks about forgiveness, which is something we see over and over. It's vital. You cannot be forgiven unless you forgive. And prayer is coming to God, choosing to align who he is to his will instead of our own, right? Stay in faith, stay in patience, trust God's will versus our will. This model prayer, the Lord's Prayer, taught by Jesus, is one that encompasses everything we ought to pray in just a few short lines. And if you unpack the Lord's Prayer, it is a gift to us. Think about that. It comes right from Jesus, and it is a gift to us. Another mic drop, right? Boom. This prayer is an outline of the things we should pray. But it doesn't mean, I know it, if you're a Christian and if you grow up in the church, you know the Lord's Prayer in an instant. Boom. But don't just recite the words. Contemplate them. Unpack them. Realize their value, right? We can use this prayer as instruction for the things that should be on our lips as we come to God in prayer. And something I'm constantly mindful of, I do focus on virtues. And so, charity, right? Diligence, patience, kindness, humility. Humility means having a servant's heart versus a heart that's focused on the world. And that, to me, is one of the key messages of the whole Sermon on the Mount, right? Go forth in humility. He is our Father. He is a God who is personal and deals with his people, right? He knows us. He loves each of us. So we must come to him with a pure and, I would say, grateful heart and with humility. If you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. So we have Matthew 14 and 15. And that's it. That's as far as I got this past month. which on the one hand, wow, right? On the one hand, is it enough? Did I do enough? Etc. Yeah, I think I kind of did. Honestly, I think I did. I'm so glad I started this study. So now, where am I? Let's see here. And then it has, I'm not writing in it, so I can gift it, pay it forward, if you will. Yeah, I did this section. So now, what's next here? After I finish my December devotions, then we're going to go back to Matthew 16:18. And again, 2 verses. And it unpacks it. It has questions for you. Right? And then it goes to a weekly reflection, and then we go on. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that. But I just felt for Advent, I wanted to do something special like I do for Lent and for Easter. Okay, friends, thank you for taking this time with me. I hope that you understand me sharing my faith journey is to empower and to give you hope and strength and to remind you that you are loved. Thank you so much, planner friends and others. Have a blessed, blessed day. Bye, friends.